fired. Yeah,
I appreciate your patience.
it's all good.
We won.
You won? Nice. Because of your coaching?
In spite of it. The other teams, like, when the coach says, come on in, they
Yeah.
gather in, they take a knee,
Yeah.
they like listen to every word he says. My kids are like,
They're all over? Yeah.
listen about as well as my own kids. One of them is my kid. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. I had to mention that to him because he wasn't listening.
Building character already.
Yeah. He cried.
That's a quick way.
Boy, he cried. That was too much fun. Made my son cry in the soccer field.
Yep. All right. Another minute? Are you good? All right.
Hey, Judy, were we going to meet downstairs at one time
When? For what?
tonight?
No.
Or was that for Thursday? We were gonna meet downstairs, but now we're meeting in the community room for the plan commission?
Or the library, who knows where we're meeting.
Okay.
I think they settled on the police department.
Okay, it's 7:04. I will call the meeting to order. Has the meeting been properly noticed?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call tonight. Everyone is here except for Alderman Tierney, who is excused, who's traveling. We'll move right along to chairman's business. Just wanted to say I went to the lighthouse lighting, and it looked to be okay. Alderman Gasper, hopefully you've had a chance to.
I went to look the other night and it wasn't working.
It wasn't working.
Nope.
Was it a cloudy day? Too cloudy? Is that what it was? Okay.
I went to the same day looking for it, it wasn't good.
Oh, it really takes that much battery power, huh?
It was lit underneath the arches, but the top wasn't lit.
Okay. But it was another good event by the Park and Rec Department. I really appreciate it. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at the minutes from August 24th, 2021. Do we have any comments or revisions? All good?
No.
All right. With no other comments regarding the minutes, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 24th?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Jim. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Phil. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving right along to item 4, public comments and appearances. Do we have anybody tonight who would like to make any public comments? Okay, no public comments tonight. Moving on to item 5, old business. I don't think we have any old business tonight to review. And then we'll jump right into new business and going into item A, which is to consider the additional cost to repair sanitary sewer in the city parking lot east of Duluth Trading. Rob?
Okay, so with us tonight is Gavin Cobes. Am I pronouncing your name right? Gavin Cobes. Okay, all right. Okay, so so Gavin is with us. He was the project manager for this work that was performed. I have the map. Yep, I have the map showing the area. So in the original agreement, the work that was to be performed, first they started with lining the 2 manholes that are within the project limits, and then they went into grouting, which required some specialized equipment. They grouted 2 joints. They started on the downstream end, which is typical for this kind of work. Unfortunately, that's right underneath the building, the breezeway that separates the restrooms and the lift station. On the 3rd joint, they were increasing the pressure in the pipe, and the pipe failed, presumably because of there essentially being no earth around it to support it. But even the pipe, the belief was that even the pipe itself should have a greater strength than the minimum pressure that was on it. So so I went through. So they essentially worked through the situation, and because even though there's only two buildings on it that are served by that line, there's a lot of water entering that line still because the lining had not taken place. So they needed to continually pump the line and continually monitor the line until it was repaired. And so that did get a little pricey. Of course, at the time they didn't know what they didn't know what they were getting into until it was actually repaired. And so they tried several methods to repair the line. The gravel surrounding the pipe kept falling in. They have a detailed list of what happened on each day that they were out working, and I've gone through this list with Gavin, and as much as I was hoping to find areas we could cut, I found all of the charges to be legitimate and reasonable. But Gavin is here to answer questions that you may have. And so, Gavin, if assuming that there are some questions, you'll need to step at the microphone here and press the on button. Does anyone have any questions for me or Gavin? Go.
Any questions from the board for Gavin or Rob?
And Gavin, if I misspoke at all on any of that,
Phil, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Why wasn't it brought sooner to us when it happened?
when it happened, I was advising the board and the council. When it occurred, I was advising the board and the council that it was occurring, but we didn't. Essentially, Michael stayed on site and continued their operations until they were able to make the repair. So it was one of those where, I give Michael's credit because they could have, once it collapsed, they could have thrown up their hands and said, "What do I do?" I've had contractors do that to me before. I think they worked diligently until it was repaired. I think that when we talked about what we thought it would cost. They estimated it at first around $20,000 to $30,000, but it wound up climbing because, quite frankly, I think everything they thought was going to work did not work until it finally worked.
Yeah, no, true. I mean, at the end of the day, we were grouting this line because there's really heavy infiltration, and in order to install our cure-in-place pipe, which I'm not sure if most of you are familiar with, but essentially you're inverting a flexible liner impregnated with resin inside the line and then curing it out with hot water. Essentially, for that process to happen and be 100% effective, you need to stop as much infiltration as possible. So essentially, when we were grouting the line and the packer essentially inflated and then the pipe broke on that section underneath that restroom / pump station there, that at that time you could not dig that. That would cost more than essentially what ended up happening. Essentially what ended up happening, we tried to suck the void out or the break with a vac truck. And due to the porous backfill in there, we're seeing heavy rocks, something you usually don't see in backfill of like a sewer relay pipe. And then we tried to grout over the void, which is a feasible solution that have done in the past. And even that didn't work, and the backfill kept on coming in. And it was also due to the high groundwater table, essentially. But we ended up getting a 6-inch PVC pipe more or less through the break, and then we ended up installing our liner with also increased risk there as well. But it ended up working out where we had to install an 8-inch by 6-inch transition liner through the pipe. And then we ended up, curing the liner out and giving you guys a brand new pipe within the existing pipe there. So essentially what we wanted to do, we proposed to do something and we ended up, coming at the end result. Was it the exact result we thought of when we gave Rob the solution of, our 3 steps to give you the holistic approach to stop the infiltration? At the end of the day, no. But I would say the infiltration has stopped significantly in that area, and there's a brand new pipe inside that existing severely deteriorated and heavily infiltrated pipe. So I proposed to Rob at the end of the day, we kept him updated, and then, we gathered our costs at the end of it. And I proposed them what we essentially need to, break even. There's nothing more than that. I gave them our labor rates, equipment rates. It's all there, So that's essentially what we're doing at the end of the day. We're trying to be fair. We ended up doing what we proposed to do, and that's essentially why we're seeking the additional money.
Don't you normally I work construction all my life, electrician.
Sure.
When we gave a bid, we gave a bid. If something happened, it was on us. It wasn't on the city or that was part of the bidding game. We came in, if we were too low, it was our problem. What was the next bidder?
Yeah, I'll answer that.
Okay.
So this was not, this project, because of the, it's the highly technical nature of it, was not put out to bid. It was an emergency lining situation. We wanted to get it lined right away before we had a failure. So we went through the resolution process, which this board approved that resolution. This is a little different than a bid where their risk is in it. And so if you look in the clarifications, I think it's under the clarifications and exclusions, or in its, it was not, the bid is an estimate, okay? And so they exclude essentially items that would, be beyond their control, for instance, the pipe failure. So,
I guess I just want to add to that,
right.
on a
So,
lot of.
it's under clarifications and exclusions, which is in your packet.
Sure, sorry, I didn't cut you off, but
Yeah, no,
I just want to, on a lot of these contracts, especially with sewer lining, there are unknown conditions that you are unaware of. All we had to go off of was a CCTV video, but the pipe conditions on the outside, obviously the soil stabilization and the backfill that was there was unknown to us. And I think when we proposed this, we both discussed and knew some of the risks involved. So, essentially, hopefully we can keep a good working relationship here. And, you guys work with Michaels, we work with you guys, at the end of the day, we're just trying to present a solution to your issue.
And even if this were a typical bid, design, bid, build project, if you have something that occurs, say it's a typical lining project, and for a typical, usually Visu Sewer does it. Visu Sewer is just like cleaning the pipe, and all of a sudden a pipe would explode or implode or, fail that was not cracked or not obvious or not, not apparent. That's something that they would reasonably not be aware of, so it would be a changed condition, because otherwise, if they're going through their typical process, they can't be held accountable for a failure in a pipe that they could not be anticipating. So that now, if their equipment breaks down or their pipe folds on them or stuff like that, then a contractor, say if the grouting went well, but then they were lining the pipe and there would be a problem in the curing process. That would be on them, because that's their fault. But if there's something that could not be anticipated by what's presented to them in the plans and specifications, or in this case the televising, then typically they would not be held accountable. So there's nothing that they did that caused that caused this. If it accidentally went up to like 20 PSI, then that would be on them. So,
We tested this packer, manufacturer tested, we tested it on site, and then we were even grouting the sections of pipe that had no cracks, looked physically stable before we moved on to the sections that we were worried about. And that's where essentially it failed. I mean, we were well within the industry standards of the PSI being exerted on the inside of that hose pipe, so.
Any other questions for Rob or Gavin? Yeah, Alderman Sigler?
What's your first name? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Gave? Yeah. Gav. I like that.
Gavin.
Okay, Gavin, I got it. Gav. Two questions, really. One is, item on when you bid, or when you gave Rob a quote, item number, let's see, 5, was for mainline grouting, estimated quantity 300 gallons. How many gallons did you use?
Well, essentially, we didn't use any gallons because we've only pressure test, and then you grout if that pressure test fails, 2 joints before this was our 3rd joint that we moved on to. So we started, and I don't know if you memorize that map, but the downstream
Right, no, I
of that
understand.
pipe was that middle manhole was in between the restroom and that pump house there.
Right.
So we started there, which was on what we thought were the better sections of pipe, and then we moved on. But we only used about 20 gallons.
Total?
Yeah, because we never got to the other sections to grout them. At that point, we didn't want to grout anymore to have the same exact failure. That pipe collapse also collapsed on that packer, and it essentially ripped the exterior of that packer, so it had a hole in it, more or less. That was a specially made packer just due to this project.
And so you estimated doing 300 gallons of grouting. But
Due to the amount of infiltration
Right.
we've seen.
But after your first failure and pipe collapse, you decided it was too risky to grout.
Yeah, I mean, essentially at that point, we couldn't grout anymore because when you have a pipe collapse and then it kept collapsing.
But then you.
And then 2, our packer was
right,
destroyed.
But you cleared that out, right?
Yes, we essentially cleared that out and put a 6-inch piece of PVC.
Well, I would have thought you would have grout. You said you get a better job if you grout ahead of your lining, right?
That is to mitigate all the risk involved in doing this. Essentially, yes. But at that time, we ended up putting a pre-liner in, and then we ended up doing a water inversion on this liner, which wasn't necessarily anticipated in our pricing because there's 2 different methods of inversion. There's an air inversion with steam carrying it out, and there's a water inversion using water column head, inverting the liner and then heating that water up. So essentially, we had to go to that method. We cured the liner out 2 times, I guess twice as long as we thought we would have to cure this liner out to mitigate the risk of having some of those issues. They're called lifts, soft spots, stuff like that, essentially in this line that we'd have to go recorrect afterwards.
So that was the first question, which I sort of understand.
Yeah,
So instead of using 300 gallons of grout, you maybe used 20 gallons of grout, but you used a preliminary liner.
correct. We
you
still
could-
use the liner to line the pipe, yeah.
Right, okay. Then, second question, when you were, I believe you were given the closed circuit TV, right? Or did you do your own too?
We were given it initially, yeah.
You were given it, Rob, right? You-
Right, but then they televised it they televised it themselves right before they did the work.
Yep.
Right, and you saw longitudinal cracking.
There in the pipe, not the pipe we were starting out grouting though, but yes, there's multiple longitudinal cracks, circumferential cracks in this pipe and heavy infiltration, yes.
Okay, but so the critical cracking is the longitudinal cracking.
Correct, yeah.
And I'm guessing that cracking was along the crown of the pipe primarily?
Yeah, it's in certain sections. It's not through the whole pipe segment.
Okay, so you weren't worried about those sections? Or you were?
Essentially, yes. I mean, we were taking risk in doing that, but essentially, if you grout that, we're essentially thinking the grout, which we've done this many of times, we do grouting on a regular basis, would hold that in place. So we inflate the packer, and that would be inside in between the packer, and that grout would be on the outside of the pipe and inside those cracks, essentially holding that up.
And if I recall, I mean, most of the cracking was at 9 and 3. If I remember, that's my recollection.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but
Yeah, I mean, there was
Clay
cracks.
clay
Yeah,
pipe, right?
correct. It is clay pipes.
If it was a flexible pipe, like a PVC pipe, any cracking in the crown would indicate failure.
it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
Okay.
None of the pipe was deformed.
Yeah, there was, yeah.
What you saw then was longitudinal cracking, Rob said, mostly at 9 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, those cracks are kind
And
of
that's why
spider
you were
cracks. They're
using
sporadic, yeah.
the longer packer.
Correct. We weren't actually using just a joint packer to grout the
Right.
joints. We were using a more or less, we'll just call it a pipe packer. So it spans a whole segment of pipe that we can grout. So it was about a 4 foot to 5 foot long packer, essentially.
Was this clay pipe like 5-foot pipe or 3-foot pipe?
3 foot.
Yeah.
3-foot pipe.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So you covered 2 joints with your packer.
Correct.
Right,
Yep.
okay. So I'm presuming that did a really good job. So
It does. We've tried it on other projects, and
when you
has worked.
televised
Yeah.
at the conclusion of the work, Rob was satisfied,
Correct.
right, Rob?
Or I don't want
yeah.
to speak for you, Rob, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I was satisfied. They do have to come back and fix a couple of leaks in the manholes, but they'll be doing that at no additional charge.
Okay, and the, kind of explain, do the inverts of the 8 and the 6-inch line up?
I mean, not perfectly.
But they're close.
Yeah,
They are close, yeah. I mean, essentially, the
Just so the
invert
6-inch
is just
wasn't on
going to
top
be
of the
off because we put that 6-inch PVC in there, essentially.
I'm guessing that was, you said it was corrugated PVC, like A2000 pipe?
No, we just used SDR 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
All good answers, Gav, but so far, okay. The next I do have more than 2, I just realized that because
That's fine.
you get a chance to ask them all. About 70% of your overrun was labor, or I should say 64% was labor, 20% was equipment, and 16% was materials. When I looked at your breakout by labor, equipment, materials.
Okay. Yeah.
You had about 165 hours of overtime.
Okay. Yeah. I was just waiting for you. Okay.
No,
yeah. No. Essentially, the labor overrun is due to the pipe collapse and then the water backing. Back charging behind it, and we are also concerned about that strip mall and that lateral backing up essentially into that restaurant and causing us and you guys additional issues. So when the break occurred, actually, it was on a Thursday, if I can remember right, and we could not clear it at that time, so we needed bypass watch set up, and due to this being winter as well, the bypass could technically freeze, so it's not something you could just set and forget and also fuel up. So that's essentially why we are that heavy on labor.
Okay, so my question is more of how did you treat the overtime labor as far as the charges are concerned? Was it 1.5 times your normal rate?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, our standard union, we're a union company, the standard union time rates, standard time to 8 hours. Anything after that's time and a half during the week. It's a time and a half on Saturdays, and then it's double time on Sundays. And that's standard.
Okay, so when you had a $30 an hour person, you basically charged the city $45 an hour.
Correct. We're all where I'm charging and presenting is that their hourly wage, the fringe package that we pay for, and then overhead. Nothing, no margin, no nothing.
Okay, when you say, when you list in here $23 an hour for labor, what's one of the,
That's that package. Yeah. That's the packageed rate. That would be their hourly wage, fringe benefits,
really?
and is that right if I?
yeah.
Yeah, the reason I ask you that is that the overtime charge would also include your overhead.
Yeah, I want to say when I broke it down, I mean, they didn't, as you can see, they're not giving you the exact dollar figures, but it winds up being like $110 an hour or something like that.
Correct.
That sound about right?
Yeah, I get that.
It varied, but
Yeah, so I mean, I break down those rates in these time card reports, and I'm not sure if you guys received.
All right, give me a page number if you would.
Sure.
Yeah, they just have these field
Oh, okay.
log reports. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Give me a page number, Rob, that we can refer to.
I'll let Gavin.
Well, he won't have that. That's 21 of 79, for example. It was in our packet.
On their breakdown list, is that, or their Michael's
Their
daily field log,
Field log.
page 21 you're looking at?
21 of 79 on the PDF would be 5 of the Michael's
Would be
doc.
January 22nd.
Oh, you're looking, 21 of 79? That's what,
That's 5 of the Michael's document, 5 of 42 of the Michael's document.
all right, so you're looking at 5 of 42 on the Michael's, which is 21 of 79 in your packet? Is that what you're,
That's just one I picked, okay?
okay.
And we'll look at that rate.
Jacob Warner.
It's a bad one because it doesn't have a rate. Hang on.
So you're on January 22nd?
Let's go to a different one. That one doesn't work.
And as you look through these time cards, we do have different skilled unions. So we had our grouting crew comes from Illinois, and they are local too. So those are higher rates than your 113 labor rate. I mean, we use all laborers on these projects, but you need to have specific classes to do grouting, and that's where our grouting crew comes from. So essentially, when this happened, they were the grouting crew on site, and then they also came afterwards to do the grouting over the pipe break to try to stabilize that soil to prevent it from collapsing even further. We essentially thought we could vac a hole through a grout mass without any more soil falling in, and that ended up not working. That way, we could have gave this a full 8-inch pipe. If we could stabilize the soil above, we would have lined through the break. Soil kept falling in even after we did the grouting on top of the pipe break. And essentially, that's why we had to insert the 6-inch PVC into the pipe at the end of that pipe for, I think we stuck it in like 12 feet. And that's why the end of the 12 feet of that pipe segment is 6-inch, essentially.
Okay. So there's still a possible void above that section of pipe.
That is now grouted though. We did grout that. So we
Okay.
inserted a grout. Since we were backing so much out, that was going to help two sides of things there. Hopefully stabilize the soil that came through the break and that was already coming through due to heavy infiltration coming into the pipe. All those fine sands are already falling in. So that's why mostly it was rocks that are falling in. So essentially, not only did we line that, we grouted above that pipe break that was already void of probably finer soils and rocks at that point.
Did you try
and
to grout?
stabilize that
Did
area?
you try to grout from the surface?
We actually grouted from the manhole. So in the manhole, we drilled in
Okay.
a 3/4-inch pipe, about 1 7 feet, 1 9 feet, and 1 11 feet. And then that was staggered vertically every 2 feet as well above that pipe break. And then we injected structural grout.
Okay, I couldn't get that from your daily report. It wasn't that detailed, but that's excellent, by the way. That was probably the best way to do it,
Yeah.
but not the easiest way to do it, but the best way.
Yeah. Yep. There was electric running through that sidewalk, which prevented us from drilling. We would actually probably point grout from the top, but due to the electric running through there, that was the better option.
This was a perfect storm. I mean, every week that I saw the crew down there, I'd say to Rob, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, we had a pipe failure. Okay, and I kind of got a handle on it. I still have to go back to labor for a minute.
Sure.
Let's just use an example. Give me an example of a labor rate.
Yeah. So, I mean, 1 second here. So for Scott Petrowski, labor, local 113, we have 82.76 standard time rate.
Right. What did you charge for his overtime?
His overtime would be 111.22.
11. So
I don't think you had any.
Sorry, I don't have all the rates listed if they didn't have double time on the time card.
I have a question on that labor too.
139, yeah, 139.81.
Is your, one day you show a journeyman on a Saturday for 12 hours overtime. And then the next day you show on a Sunday an apprentice 8 hours double time. Or labor, I should say.
Where are you, which report are you referring to, please?
Field report, page 9 of 42 and 8 of 42.
You said page 8 of 42?
Yes. And then 9 of 42.
Yeah. So page 8 of 42, he was on site. Yeah, that was one of the local 2 guys that was on site yet. Because that was just after the pipe break happened and we had no other crew members up here that could take over for that crew. So that's why that guy is local. You see the skills. I mean, the skills are right there. What we have here on our field log, it says union. That's just the home union of the job. And then their skill is actually their actual union. It's their home union is the skill. The union we show there is where the job is located. Because the way we have to base our rates off of, we pay them the higher of the 2. That's our national agreement. So it's all back accounting, payroll stuff there on the time card.
just so you know, that wasn't too easy to figure out based on what you submitted. I mean, I'm getting the understanding now that your overtime charge isn't twice the standard or 1.5 times the standard rate, because the standard rate includes your overhead. Okay, so it's less than 1.5 times that number. Okay, that was my primary concern with labor. I guess the other question, this got a little bit involved. You actually transferred 100% of the risk to us, because this amount makes you better. I mean, makes you whole, let's put it that way, Gav.
Yeah.
Was there any discussion about sharing that at all?
I mean, essentially where we broke through, and I think we were discussing with Rob, is essentially there's 2 other spots of infiltration. I'm not saying that was caused by us, but essentially we closed these pipe sections off from being infiltration coming through, that it's always going to find somewhere else to come through.
Sure.
So in 2 of these, the upstream manhole by that restaurant, that lateral coming from that restaurant is now leaking. And then the manhole, which we did spray, but essentially it's coming up from the invert now, the actual pipe invert, after we were lining this. So we will line those 2 areas essentially for
It wasn't
no
my
charge.
question, but it was a good answer.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is, what we've done here with the $50,000 unforeseen condition, extra cost, okay, is made you well. Basically, no profit, but made you well, okay? Was there discussion about sharing some of that with the city?
And that the only thing is here is I'm showing some of these costs, and there is also, you know, if I showed you my accounting report, there is equipment pieces and stuff that we get charged that I didn't charge due to some unforeseen events. One day we thought we were going to line, but we ended up not lining due to the wind and, you know, some of the unknown conditions, which I took off.
But just so you know, Gab, we can't see that.
I agree. I agree.
We did discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay, so long as Rob's happy with the fact that the way you handled those extra costs
Yeah.
were reasonable,
Yeah.
okay? I didn't get that feeling, because all I really had to go by was Rob's very short summary and your documentation, which I couldn't get that out of. I mean, I presume that if it was there, you charged for it. But what you're saying was if you planned on grouting and you didn't use it, you didn't charge for it.
Yeah,
Sort of.
essentially, I'm saying we planned on lining once, and it ended up not working out, and we already brought the equipment out. Yeah, I didn't essentially charge it. Yes, I try to be as transparent as I can be, essentially, without essentially here it is, But this is what it is,
It is what it is, but it's about a 75% overrun, which, very honestly, is way beyond what normally we're used to.
Yeah.
Okay. Normally, and again, I work for a firm that we did a lot of underground work, and I understand the unforeseen condition situation well. Okay. It's just that what you've told us here is helpful in saying that you didn't, you made up some of that, what would have been additional cost, and wrote it off. We can't see that, just so you know that.
Yeah.
But Rob was apparently satisfied that what you did was appropriate. It's still $50,000. I just want you to understand that it's not a $150,000 job with a $50,000 overrun.
No,
It's a $69,999 job that has a $50,000 overrun, which because of the perfect storm, the fact that you couldn't dig it from the top, the fact that you couldn't do certain things, the fact that you were in the middle of the winter under Wisconsin conditions, all those things a lot of that is your risk. Okay, but what's happened here is that you have, you pretty much made yourself well the way you've done this. And I guess I would have expected a little more cost sharing with the city.
And like I said, essentially, we're going to grout those two areas, and that is going to cost us probably $6,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess.
That just so you know too, I didn't know that before I came in here
well, that's
tonight.
fine.
Sure.
Okay.
No, and I guess I want to, and believe me, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I don't make it a habit to carry water for the contractors. That's why you don't see many of the. Well, this is unprecedented to have a change order like this. So, there are many change order requests that I beat back that you guys never hear about. I think I just think these charges are fair. They're reasonable. And again, I want to point out that when this occurred, there was no complaining on Michael's part. They went in, they did the work. You can see their employees were here Saturdays, Sundays in sub-zero temperatures. They probably had their crews, scheduled to be in other places doing other projects, and they stuck with it. And really, again, what occurred was no fault of their own. And I have while I hate it, and I'm sure Gavin doesn't like being here before you, having to present it to you. I don't like it, but it's I've gone through it as thoroughly as I possibly can. Gavin, throughout the process, has again been transparent as he's been tonight. Has given me the answers to every question in detail without having to get back to me. He knows this job inside and out, and I have a high level of confidence that this is fair. And as Gavin alluded to, Michael's is a good company. We want to keep working with, we want to have a good relationship with them. They do exceptional work. Visu Sewer, who I also like working with, they kind of walked away from the job after they bid it the first time. So, I appreciate it. They said they couldn't do it, and so they walked away. But Michael said, "We'll take on this project for you," and I don't think it'd be fair to shortchange them for willing to take the risk of the job, which wound up they probably wish they didn't take it. So, yeah. Yeah, but there are very few firms that do this type of work. In fact, I don't know of any others. And so, So again, they didn't, there's no agreement here to get legal or technical that says that no matter what the unforeseen conditions are, we're going to take that on. In fact, they spell that out in the contract, that in any contract, again, if unforeseen circumstances arise, you're going to pay a change order. That's what change orders are. They're always for unforeseen conditions.
And generally, the scope of services change because of the unforeseen
Right,
conditions.
exactly. So, this could have been a $200,000 job where $150,000 went great, and then just this one stretch went wrong. And there's nothing about it I like other than the fact that we're being fair, and that's, I think if you ask any contractor, they'll say that when you go to Port Washington, they're going to be fair. So.
Alderman Sigmund, yes.
Does this have a 1 year or a 2 year warranty?
We do have a standard 1-year warranty.
Okay. We're going to probably change that, Rob. We're probably going to go to a 2 year warranty. No, seriously.
Sure. No, I
Because
get
a lot
that.
of the industry is moving that way, especially for when you have a condition where you're dealing with an underground conduit. Mm-hmm. It might not fail. It might fail in a 13th month. I mean, part of the problem.
Right. And I think depending, it'd be hard to foresee an example, but I mean, most contractors, and I think Michael's would too, I can't speak for him, but I mean, if there's something that's an obvious negligence on their part or anything that's a result of their work, usually they will work beyond the warranty if there's something that's an obvious problem caused by them.
I would add, Gav, that I think the item that really has convinced me is the way you grouted from the manhole into the section of the failed pipe above it, because that would be a potential catastrophe next to that building. So that effort was excellent. That didn't have to be done, but I'm saying that was excellent. I would, if you're looking for a motion, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the change order for.
So we're approving the total project cost, right? So the original $69,999 plus the $39,001, so $109,000.
49, isn't it?
Well, it winds up being more. See, we paid or it's maybe a little unclear. There's two prices. There's one, and in error I said 2 manholes before. It's 3 manholes. So we paid for the items 1 and 2 separately. So that was approximately $10,000, and then we paid the $109,000 for the pipe work. So it wound up being like $119,000. That's why it's $50,000 extra. It's roughly $70,000 plus $20,000, or $70,000 plus $50,000 equals $120,000 in round numbers.
They didn't include items 1 or 2 in their summary.
Okay.
So you don't see it in there, but when you look at it, it's items 1 and 2 on top of the 39, so it's about 49 something, right, Gav? I can't think of it.
Correct.
49, give me the number, I'll put it in the motion, Rob. 49,000.
So, yeah, how I presented it is I took out the grouting item, the CIPP lining item, left the manhole lining separate because that was already done and completed in August. And essentially, we're looking to be paid now the additional $49,301.66.
49,301.66.
Yep.
I'll include that in my motion.
So we have a motion to approve the costs as presented for 69,000, right? And then the 49,000? We just need a total number, right?
I don't care how we get there.
Right. 120,000?
I'm only dealing with the change order, I guess, in the motion.
Yeah, Rob, do you need just the change order or both?
I would say approve the charges as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the charges as presented. John?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Gasper. Any further discussion or questions for Gavin or Rob?
Yeah, Rob, how come the numbers, you can't get the numbers right on that? I mean,
Yeah, that's an error on my report. I'll correct that for the 39,000, the 39,001 let's just say 39,000. So the 39,000 is in addition to the 10,000 we already paid. So I'm only talking about the additional pipe cost. So I have the numbers wrong. I didn't include the manhole cost, which is another 10,000, which makes it roughly $49,000
So then it's 119,000.
for the total project cost. Yes, it's approximately 119,000.
And I do have one more question about the labor. When you did the labor, like we have double time down here, does that include double overhead?
No,
That's just straight,
our overhead gets charged based off the base labor rate, so it wouldn't be.
it's just, we get charged once for 8 hours?
Well, there is overhead costs on all of our direct labor. So it's not like our equipment, if you look at the equipment, it's charged out at 10 hours because that's how we get charged. That's our daily cost. Michael's considers a day 10 hours. So you use it 4 hours, you use it 14 hours. I was, charging how we charge out just the 10 hours, and that gets us our, $350 for a vac truck. That's not the cost, but that's essentially that equipment cost. But yeah, your overhead gets accrued on every, I guess, all your labor costs. It doesn't stop at 8 hours per our
I
accounting.
mean, I can see the union costs and stuff like that, but it's like going to the hospital, getting charged for an aspirin is $12 because they put a admission fee in there and billing fee.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not,
I mean, the labor cost, there's no break on that. I'm saying after after your 10-hour day, it's still
Sure.
40-hour week,
yeah,
no matter what. Anything over 40 is overtime.
correct, yeah.
So, let's say it's $10 an hour for your overhead. You charge 20 on double time and 15 on time and a half? Or is it initially charged on this bill and we're clear after that?
I mean, to be honest, as I know it, it gets charged as a percentage of the direct labor. I guess that's as much as
So we're
I
paying
can
more
tell you.
besides the overtime cost.
that would essentially be
You're
correct.
double dipping on that, but
I'm essentially not double dipping.
whoever is.
That's how we get charged.
Your question, I think, Phil, you're only paying the overhead once.
But
You're paying the overtime rate based on the basic hourly rate.
correct, but normally when it's built out with everything in it. Meaning,
We had an example, $82 an hour.
Correct.
Overtime rate's 111. If it was a full 1.5 times that, it would be 123. They're not double dipping on it. That was the question I had.
Yeah.
I guess the other part here. Why did we do it when we did it? Did we consider it? We considered it an emergency condition, Rob. But wasn't that like in the summer? Help me.
Yeah, it was in August. It was I think it was, I'm gonna go back. I think
Essentially,
it was
that
September.
packer
It was-
had to be manufactured. It was a specialty packer, and that procurement time led to that delay.
Right, so it was,
Because of the longitudinal joints, or normally would you use the joint?
A joint packer is pretty standard for a company to just have in stock. This, I guess, more or less pipe packer, I'll call it to you guys. But yeah, that is got to be custom manufactured. It's not somewhat newer. I mean, we've done it on different sizes of pipe, but that's got to be specifically manufactured for your application that you're requesting.
yeah, so the agreement was in September 2020. The manhole work was done in October. they anticipated coming in November, and my recollection is they had issues with COVID outbreaks with their crews, and that delayed them about a month, 2 months, really.
True, yeah, along with everything in our projects last fall is maybe on other projects, yeah. I mean, procurement of materials delayed the cost of procurement of that packer, and then, yeah, there was, we were dealing with COVID as well on a bunch of our crews.
So yeah, well, you have, 4 guys in a camera truck, and probably not the ideal place to be. Yeah.
So I called it the perfect storm. It was the imperfect perfect storm, because a lot of you were working at the worst time to be dealing with water, which was one of the problems. I think you had some icing up problems, even though you kept it inside. I mean, it was a good, pretty good description of a terribly difficult project.
And it was, and I don't think we paid a ton extra for the weather, but it was probably the worst weather. They were working in the worst weather of the winter. That, like, mid-January to mid-February last year, if you remember, was extremely bitter. And it's always windy down there.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, the motion carries 4-1. Okay. Thanks, Gavin. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, everyone. No, I actually live in Sheboygan. Yeah.
All right, moving on to item number 2 then is to consider the change order for Lake Street design.
Night for change order. So, okay, so this kind of pairs with the next item on the agenda, which is the 2022 street improvement projects. We pushed back Lake Street to next year simply because of mostly timing and some other issues that have come up, and just a decision to better pair with the hours that the marina, when the season that the marina is open, and when the the new Newport Shores is being constructed. So we felt that next year would be a better time to tackle that project. So this actually reduced the change order a little bit, because we were looking at a standalone project. Now we'll fold it back in with the 2022 project. Some of the extra work that was essentially piled onto this contract after we had the original Amendment 1 was on the portion of Lake Street north of Jackson Street. Bremer had went a little more in depth once they essentially raised the flag on what the reprofiling looked like. We did a second option, you may recall, of trying to flatten out that hump in the road, which really they were unable to do, and they pointed out that, the ancillary concerns that we would have if we stretched that reprofiling from the 160 feet that Stantec had come up with to something more like 300 feet, and realized that was still not going to get us to where we needed to be. They showed up for an extra meeting as a result. They went a little deeper into the Bremer study and to determine runoff routes, when initially all we really did was hire them to redesign the road rather than look at it as more of a universal drainage project. Jackson Street itself, we added because of the proposed townhomes project where the former hair salon was, because that project is going to extend or would extend the curb out into the street, and we have a project where we'll be installing a new bike lane from the interurban, I should say a separated bike path from the interurban to Jackson, then of course Jackson to the gateway out to the breakwater. We added the Jackson Street improvements to this project. That was again subsequent to the to the execution of Amendment 1. And then we looked at two different intersection designs. We've encountered contaminated soils on the project, which quite honestly we might have, which didn't come as a huge surprise, but was not included in the original amendment. We're also looking at permeable pavers, so which is more than it's more than a surface treatment, because of course permeable pavers will change the drainage. So there's going to be multiple different drainage designs. So for these reasons, we went $5,367.50 over the budget, or over what we had in Amendment 1 for scope. And then, yeah, Gremmer, of course, listed out here, so I maybe went into too much detail, but.
Any questions for Rob on amendment number 2, the proposed amendment? Yeah, John.
This is what I did for 2 days, by the way. I find your response to me, which I think was today, Rob, when you said, "Hi, John,"
Okay.
and you said that portion is T&M so that we wouldn't spend it if we don't proceed.
That's our third item on the agenda. So,
Okay.
yeah, so this
that's
is what
more-
this 5,000 that we're talking about right now, this has already been spent. They already did this work for Jackson, which mostly amounts to the work on Jackson Street, the survey work and the line work that they've done so far. And then they mentioned, which I forgot to mention, was the force main that Dan brought up as wanting to replace. We didn't have that in Addendum 1. And the alternatives to the intersection that, they were only hired to design the intersection once. And then, yeah, the evaluation of Lake Street became a lot more involved because the reprofiling that was proposed by Stantec wound up not being preferable.
Okay, so let's talk about Jackson Street, which is the only part I want to talk about.
Sure.
If the Lunzer townhome projects don't get built, we won't do that work,
Right.
right?
Well, the only way we would do that work is if they are, it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg. If they're proceeding and giving us every indication they're going to proceed, we have to time this thing so that it's going to be, it could be tricky depending upon what they plan on doing, what they tell us they plan on doing, and what they do. Because this project's going to go in,
When?
I would expect we'll break ground in late March or early April. So we're going to have to make some decisions as we go here into the fall.
You're going to try
So,
to beat the coal.
yes, we absolutely want to get all our underground work performed well before December, or before the beginning of May. Yeah. So,
Okay, so what we're really doing here is we're covering the cost that Gremmer made based really on your work with them, saying we've got to find this out, and they did that, and they found it out, and it cost $5,600 or something.
yeah, it was, like I said, it was the additional work on Jackson, the additional work for the force main, the multiple iterations on the intersection, and the additional evaluation of Lake Street.
So this
And then
isn't
a
an
few
estimate.
hours for the NOI.
This isn't an estimate, Rob. This is a real number.
This is what yes, we owe them this money. But they were just following our direction.
Well, that's what I mean.
At the time. So, yeah. I mean, Gremmer, they'll you're charged a lump sum for the work. If you ask for extra, they'll do it if it falls within their budget. But once you start
Right.
going over their budget, then you'll get charged, which is really not that common.
As the past city engineer once said to me, well, one of us is responsible for it. It's either you, John, or the city. That's a joke, Rob, okay? It should be portrayed more so as that in your memo. It looked like it was an estimate of what that was going to cost,
Oh,
but it's all been done.
sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for Rob? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the proposed amendment 2 for $5,367.50?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Jim. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Gasper. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries on a vote of 4-1. Item number 6C, consider Grummer proposal for 2022 street design.
Okay, and so this follows up on the essentially the discussion we had last week about what streets I foresee us doing over the next 10 years, and of course, starting with 2022. These streets have been on our radar for some time, primarily Park Street and Pierre. But as I've said, when we determine what streets need to be repaired, a lot more goes into it than just the condition of the street. We, of course, look at the traffic volume, history of water main breaks, and how the streets align geographically. So, for instance, the reason we're going to tackle we want to tackle Sauk Road and Barnett Road are because they're adjoining to, and Orchard is because they're adjoining to Pierre. Sauk is in poor condition. Barnett is one of the worst streets in the city. I don't think there's any that are falling apart like Barnett is. So, but again, it's a very low volume street. So normally we try to just patch these to go as far as we can. But again, we're right there. We're not coming back for a cul-de-sac if there's no other additional work. So in any case, that's how we pair it. The resurfacing portion of the project, again, is grouped. These all fall into the 3 or 4 range on the PACER scale. We're trying to get as much perform for the dollar as we can. There aren't really a whole heck of a lot of streets in the city that are great candidates for mill and resurface, but these are. The curbs are in overall excellent condition. Drainage is good, but the pavement is really in poor shape. It does include, you had the question about, the cost for the overlay. It does include about 200 feet of reconstruct because we do have a small segment of water main to replace. But other than that, it's just manhole adjustments, curb replacements, some sidewalk replacements, and then the mill and overlay. But as I said, they prorate their costs for the specifications between the overlay portion and the reconstruct. So that's why it might look like the overlay is a little higher, and I know that because I questioned them on it as well. And then, yes, this includes Lake Street and Jackson Street. And if you go down to the way their proposal reads, you'll see that the reconstruct of Park, Pierre, Sauk, and Barnett, and then the resurfacing, the streets that are to be resurfaced, those are lump sums. But, sorry. But yeah, but the design of Lake and Jackson Streets, those are just time and materials not to exceed, and then they have essentially a placeholder for time and materials on the contaminated soils. So that's something Grummer would have to subconsult out, and that $6,000 is just based on past experience with their subconsultant. And then also another reason those are broken out separately is because those would be funded with TIF. And so charge that accordingly.
All right, any questions for Rob? Or
Yeah, and then the
anything more?
staking, that's just T and M also. Normally, they don't go that high, but this year it was a little more cost involved. All depends on the contractor.
The total cost on is 126,918.
Yeah, that's right. If we spend every penny of the time and material, so it would be not to exceed that amount.
Okay.
You're going to be, your only absolutely certain costs are those the 69,000, the 9,000, and the 4,300 for the soil borings. And naturally, there's going to be something for the staking, and it's 126 is the not to exceed.
Okay. Any questions on the proposal or the streets or any concerns?
Any
This proposal yet, John?
I don't have any concerns anymore because Rob answered them all via an email today. And I'd like, Rob, to ask you to forward your September 14th email to me, to the board. Please.
which one? The one?
The long crabby one.
Okay, the crabby one. Okay, all right. Yeah, I was going to say the one where
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it's, I originally suggested to Rob that his staff do the resurfacing project. And I'm going to suggest that in the future, Rob, that you build that into your work schedule on an annual basis, because we are perfectly suited to do a milling and overlay project. And the reason I say that is we have two people that can inspect it. We have people that can stake it. The sidewalk portion's easy. You mark the bad curb, it gets taken out. You do the pavement inspection and you go home. There's not a whole lot of design with that because you're keeping the centerline profile of the road unchanged. So what I'd like to see, first, to send that memo out to the board, and secondly, that in future years, beginning with 2023, that we plan on doing any milling and overlay work in-house, because we can. When you read Rob's memo, you'll see why I softened up a little bit after that.
Okay. Duly noted. We'll look out for the email.
Yeah, and we have in the past, when we just, like, for instance, if this project were just a mill and resurface, we certainly wouldn't hire out Gremmer. We're only using them because it's part of another project, so we use the specifications and the quantities and the bid, so essentially it's just tacking it on. If they did this as a tack on, the mill and resurface would look a lot smaller. And we do, it's not in here, but all the side, for the entire project, because we do spot sidewalk replacement, and then on the resurfacings, we do spot curb replacement. Ross goes out and identifies those, and they just pick them up with the GPS. They don't, so we do the portion in-house that makes sense for us to do in-house. And, honestly, I think it's a pretty reasonable price for the project. So, yeah, I mean, as always, they're under, I think, 5% of what the project estimate is.
All right. Any other comments or questions on the proposal as presented? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve then? Or do you have a question, Alderman Gasper?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve the design and staking cost not to exceed 126,918?
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Jim. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Alderman Sigwart. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on then to project updates, 2021 street improvements.
Okay, yeah, I think when we last met, this was just wrapping up. Right now, we still have just a few punch list items, but they're mostly tuck pointing manholes and a mailbox here or there. Right, some adjusting, some curb stops. But yeah, pavement in, the restoration is complete. And the weather that we've been having lately should be helpful with getting the grass to grow. So that project, for all intent and purposes, is complete, again, with some punch lists. And we're far from the final payment on it, but the work is done.
Real quick, on that project, Rob.
Yep.
That was the third street reconstruction project in my district in 5 years. I got not one complaint on this project.
Oh, okay.
When they did my street, I got like 17 complaints, okay? But I have to say that other than being a little bit erratic in how they did things, they weren't nearly as organized as the previous year. But the quality of the work looked good. I pretty much walked the whole thing and I thought it looked good, Rob.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I would say we got a lot of, just like last year, got a lot of compliments about the crews that were out there and how easy they were for people to work with, whatever requests people had.
The only people that they couldn't work with were the garbage trucks.
Yeah, okay.
Nobody can work with that.
Hey, Rob, talking about last year's work, is there a warranty on sidewalk work?
It's also 1 year. There's
Well,
some,
we better get on it because we're getting cracks on the brand new sidewalks.
okay, I'll check that out.
Maybe where? No.
Well, Walters is from,
Walters is a couple more years older. It's north of Walters. Jefferson and, make sure I get this right. Yeah, right, you got lines in there for the joints. There, right there's a couple of pictures.
okay. Over the water,
And there's
okay,
that's
over the
just
water
on the
line.
corner by me. That's not normal, is it?
Guess it was Phil who decided to take the pictures and show them at the Board of Public Works. Yeah. Well, cracking, I mean, sidewalk, it depends. Some sidewalk cracking is a shrinkage crack, which is normal. Some is a structural crack, which would be not normal. Well, it
Right.
happens, but it's not what we would.
Where it's supposed to crack, it didn't.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, if there's a hairline crack that's caused by shrinkage where the crack doesn't occur in the joint, that would be usually acceptable. But yeah, if there's like that one by the curb stop, you have a failure presumably in the trench.
Right, this is on Jefferson and Benjamin on both sides of the street. And that's just in that corner. I haven't been out walking much. So you may want to take a walk up there and check for yourself and before we pay for something we don't get.
Sure.
All right. Are we still on 2021 street improvements or are we on item B? Do you have any more?
I'm ready to move on to
Okay.
item B. Yeah, so Hales Trail, Crestview sidewalk installation. That also, I think, was just wrapping up. I think it was the last day of pouring was at our last Board of Public Works meeting. So, of course, that has occurred. Landscape restoration was completed, again, in-house by our own crews. I think, we're going to be putting up some split rail fencing down by the creek because there's a drop off, particularly on the south side. But other than that, that is complete. And want to smooth? Yes. Wasn't out there a ton, but when I was out there with John Crane looking at where we were going to put the split rail fence, there was a very happy mother pushing a baby stroller, and she was with her mother, and they asked us, "Does this sidewalk go all the way to the park?" And we said yes, and they seemed quite satisfied with that answer. Right. Eventually, it'll go even further. One step at a time.
Nice.
No pun intended.
That could happen too. Well, it's good to see those in finally. I'm glad that the city followed through on that. All right. Item C then, the 2021 sidewalk improvements.
Warrants, yep, staying on the theme of sidewalks. So, the project I would say is close to 3/4 of the way complete. They are essentially continuing to work. This is our west side, west of Spring Street sidewalk improvement projects. I think they're actually on Spring Street today. But moving right along. Of course, we are having a lot of contact with a lot of residents. So I would say, given the amount of work that we're doing, we really haven't gotten very many complaints. And the ones we do, we're addressing. So. No, I think they're working. No, I think they're still working towards Misty Ridge.
They'll get complaints when they get to Misty Ridge.
Okay.
The one comment I had heard was the concern about why are we doing this right next to the schools when school is in session? Why didn't we do it a month earlier?
Yeah. Well, I guess I would say that this is the project deadline was September 21st. I mean, there are 2.5 months of summer. This is a sidewalk contractor. I would assume that every city they work in has schools. So, I mean, I guess, while I understand the sentiment, essentially some work gets done during the school year. And it is fortunately a pretty quick operation. Their sidewalks are out one day, and the majority of the time they're poured the next, and you can walk on them the following day. So hopefully the kids are mostly able to just walk around the sidewalks that we replaced and not walk right through them like adults do. So yeah, I understand the sentiment, and we'll take that into consideration as we plan next year. I'll be honest, in this case, I did not think of it when we set the deadline for them. But we had one bidder for this project, so we try to make these projects as enticing to as many bidders as we can, and so sometimes beggars can't be choosers. So I don't know. And plus the price is already $8 a square foot. Anything I can do to bring the price down by giving them more time to work, or anything I can do to improve
Actually, the best answer,
competitiveness.
Rob, is you gave them a big window to get the best price.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's true.
Still wasn't a very good price.
No. It was my worst case estimate, so it wasn't more than that, which would have been unacceptable. So it was within the tolerable range of what we were anticipating.
Okay.
So why is it so hard to get bidders?
I've tried for a year to get my portion of my driveway done.
Well, nobody likes you.
It's not big enough, okay? And even when I talk to people and I thought owed me things in the past, they're so busy. A good example was TP, where are they now?
BMCI. And they only have half the crews working that they had when they were TP. People are scaling back. They're hard to find employees. Even concrete is hard to come by. I mean, it's a factor of the economy.
It's the same argument, Phil. People are doing less work trying to make more money, if that makes sense. That's what's happening.
Yeah, there's just really, there's too much work out there, would be my explanation. I mean, we're busy. Everyone I talk to in the trades is busier than they've ever been. I don't know. I would think Mike is probably experiencing that too.
Okay. Item D.
Spinnaker West Pond improvements. They've been working on the wall for the last week. Most of the grading work is done. We're hopefully going to get going on the utility work on Thursday. We have our fingers crossed that the utility pole is finally going to be moved. So we've had some issues with utilities moving their lines out of the way. Stantec has been out there doing some of the landscape restoration. So we're a little bit behind schedule where we wanted to be, but we're still going to, I think, hit our marks as far as, restoration, which is critical. And the overall project completion date is in November, so we'll have no problems meeting that. So it's in progress.
Just a refresher, do we anticipate more projects with the Larrabee Street flooding, or is this the first of many?
First, well, I have the 2 box culverts, one for Garfield, one for Spring Street, in my 5-year capital plan, which has yet to be approved. But it was in last year. It's in again this year for 2022.
Yep, but we had to get this done first, so.
Yes, this was step 1.
Okay. Okay, item E, breakwater improvements.
All right. Well, great news. All the surface work is done. All they're working on now are punch list items, grouting holes, and any other punch list items that are out there. So it, assuming that the weather stays decent through the end of the week, we may be open by Friday. So
Nice. And that was Michael's too, right? Correct?
yes, that was also Michael's.
Okay. And update of Heart of the Harbor?
Yeah, another project, I would say that's well, it's behind schedule, but it's really gone well. We had waited a long time for utilities to be moved, and once those were moved, we went to work. So if you haven't been down there, all the paver work was performed by the street department. They poured a concrete base for that. They're should be finishing up the concrete flat work tomorrow. The sculpture for the fire feature was installed today. Yep. The electrician is out there. Relative Electric is working on, of course, the gas line is in, so it's really a matter of just installing the ignition. So once that's ignited, that should be functional. I don't know that it'll be, God bless you, I don't know that it'll be turned on this week, but in fact, I'm almost sure it won't, but it'll be operational this week. Then it's just a matter of installing the site furniture and landscaping, which will be next week. And the sunshade is anticipated for, I think it's October 8th. So the sunshade, and there's an interpretive sign going in. And then that will be ready to cut the ribbon on.
So I assume that'll be a public event when they open it?
Yeah,
Very nice.
I'm sure Main Street will handle the ribbon cutting. So
Very good.
we had a breaking ground celebration. So I'd imagine we'll have a
Right.
ribbon cutting ceremony. But yeah, great job by our street department. Can't give them enough credit.
Very nice. Okay, moving on to item 8, forthcoming events. Discuss Board of Public Works meeting time for October.
So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for being flexible. This was only supposed to affect one meeting. They didn't have any coaches for the soccer team, and so I volunteered to coach. So even though I don't know anything about soccer,
You win.
you kick the ball into the goal and try to keep it out of your goal. So
Bench the
and I yell
problematic
a lot.
kids.
Yeah, that's right. I yell a lot at the first and second graders. Yeah. Well, I played nose guard on defense, and yeah, I played tackle in high school. Anyhow, anyhow, so I appreciate that. I presume we'll just go back to 5:30 for our next meeting, unless we're directed to move to a different time. I know there's been some discussion of uniform starting times between the boards. If anyone has any opinions. Yeah, so I know there's been some discussions. I don't know where that's going, but I guess the question is, I presume everyone wants to move back to 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay. But Okay,
5:30 is best for me.
okay.
You know, I'm one person.
That'll be fine. We'll just go back to 5:30 unless it's, it's not like changing the Constitution. We can change it, if we need to.
Yeah, that works. 5:30 then for October.
And again, thanks for your flexibility. I know it affects a lot of you, but
All right.
kids.
Number 9, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Jim, second? Second by Phil. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are adjourned.
Could have talked